everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. And of course, we always appreciate and so greatly appreciate the sponsorship and working with the Washoe County Library System. They're just a wonderful group of people, and we always appreciate their guidance with helping last minute tweaks, getting ready for our live programming. I'm Sherry with the Historical Society, and I want to introduce our host with the most, Neal Cobb. And he's such a wonderful guy, and we so appreciate his support through the years here at the Historical Society. And he is what we call our curator of our honorary curator. And so he does great promotion for the Historical Society and does great talks in the community and is always letting people know about us. So please, I want to say thank you as always, Neal, and let me turn it over to you.
Thanks, Sherry. Very much appreciate the positive words. Everybody needs something like that at this time with everything going on. Our speaker today, Erin Breen, she was born in New York, and she does not have an accent at all from there. Raised near New Orleans. It's New Orleans, isn't it? If you pronounce it properly. A graduate of the University of Washington in Seattle and the National University of Ireland in Galway. Erin Breen spent much of her working years in television here in Reno. After a short stint in California, she came to Reno in 1982 and worked at KOLO, KNPB, KTVN, and she worked as a reporter and an evening anchor. She also did columns for the Reno Evening Gazette or the it's the Reno Gazette-Journal now. We used to have two newspapers, and I still haven't shaken that. She has worked as a reporter and a columnist, she's an author. She put out a real nice book. You got to ask her about that in the question and answer part of this. She has worked in print, television, radio, podcasting, and magazines. And she did that while raising 3 children on her own. Her work has earned her 2 Emmys and an induction into the Nevada Broadcasters Hall of Fame. So this is, on the personal side, the most positive, cheerful person you're ever going to run across. Please welcome Erin Breen.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Neal. Neal and I have known each other for decades. I'm very excited to be a part of his historical program because now I'm old enough to be historical. So, you know what that says, Neal, when you say, look, she worked on all these TV stations and this radio station and the paper, it just means I could never really hang on to a job for very long. Got to keep finding work, right?
Right.
But one of the things is I worked during the golden age of TV. I really did. And I could not be prouder than to have worked through that time. So as Neal said, my first job, let me see if I can make this work. I'm new to PowerPoint, people. My first job was at KIEM TV in Eureka, California. We thought these were good looking graphics back then. We thought we just were masters of television back in 82. And look how bad they are. Anyway, I have one little story for KIE. And when I got there, I was the weather girl. And I seemed to be always, they didn't really like me doing the weather, but I did it. And I did their little morning news cut-ins. And they thought that I was trying to be too funny because I'd say things like they got a foot of flakes in Philadelphia and things like that. And the general manager called me in more than once and said, could you just say I said, it's so boring here. It's going to be cloudy in the morning and burn off and be 65. Kind of hard to get the weather wrong here. And he just didn't want me to be creative. And I thought he was going to fire me. No, he moved me to the 11 o'clock news. I went, okay, I'll probably be better as an anchor. So anyhow, that's how I got into the anchoring because I had been the weather girl. But the thing about KIEM is they were running a competition when I very, very first got there. They said, we need a new slogan for our station, KIEM. So guess what I turned in? I said, I'll do that. I said, your new slogan should be keep informed with Erin Breen. Because my name was Erin Breen, right? And they all looked at me at a staff meeting and said, no, you're the new weather girl. We're not naming this station after you. So anyway, I did win like lunch at Stanford's or something like that. I won lunch for it. I thought it was a great thing. Keep informed with Erin Breen. This was the promotion that they did back when I was there. Do you see a girl in this? Because I don't. There's no girl in any of this. They only promoted the men. This was the year that I started working there. I worked with all these guys. And I just thought it was, I don't know, I just thought it was ridiculous that they never did promote women. There were only 2 of us in the newsroom at the time, and the newsroom was quite a crazy place. But still, I thought you can't put, even Adrienne Laurent was the main anchor. Okay, it was just the weather girl, but the main anchor, they didn't put her in there either. They just have guys. I just thought, I don't know why that is, but they would never, ever actually do the women. They never included us. Okay, this is what the sets looked like back then. One of the things to notice about the TV set is that they don't, I don't know if you can see this little arrow, but they don't, one thing is nothing's finished. Look at these giant cameras. But also we did this all the time. We'd have people come in and sing live, or we'd come in and they'd do a poem, or they would come in and talk about things over here on this side. And if you can see behind it, this is where we did the weather, and it just said like sunny, sunny, rainy. We didn't have a lot of details like they do now. They spend minutes and minutes on details with weather now. No, we didn't do that. And this was our control room back then at KIEM in Eureka. This is in Eureka, California. This was our control room. It's one bank, and we had all of these playback. We had a bunch of playback things, and we played everything off of VHS tape, or we edited some tape back then. I didn't do the editing. I was a reporter, didn't do the editing, but I know that this is, people would run in and throw tapes into these machines while we were out here sitting on the set. It was kind of crazy. And the other weird thing about this station was that they had a metal roof. It was on the top of a hill called Humboldt Hill in Eureka. And they had a metal roof, and every time it rained, which is probably 3 times a week, 4 times a week, it rains a lot. The rain could be so hard on the metal roof, you felt like you had to yell to be heard in the studio. We thought, you know, but that's just the way it was. Nobody thought of putting up any like soundproofing or anything like that. We had a metal roof, and it was ridiculous when it got loud. And when it got loud in the evening, it was crazy doing the 11 o'clock news sometimes, because you didn't know if anybody was hearing you or not. And they say, no, the mics are working, but you feel like nobody could hear you. These are the cameras that we used back in the day. So this was a guy named Walt. Walt was our editor and our studio camera operator. So he had to be done editing the news before the news started, because you couldn't be editing late at KIEM. We had a couple photographers that could help editing, but he was the main photographer that floated around, or you had to shoot your own stuff. And this is not from KIEM. I just thought it was funny. These are what the cameras looked like back then. They're giant. But these cameras over here were the kind that we took out in the field. And we thought we had the best of everything, but they have a giant, you would carry this camera, and then you would also carry over your shoulder a big giant battery pack recorder thing. And it was really heavy. And so when you were going places, you had to have that camera, you had to have the backpack thing that you, this big square recorder, and you had to have the tripod. Now try doing that in heels, which is what I tried to do the first couple times. Not very high heels, but you couldn't do it. You could not get up 4 flights of stairs. It was, you thought you were going to die by the time you get up there. Then you would get up there to interview the district attorney or somebody like that. You get up there, you'd set your stuff up, you'd set the camera up over your shoulder, pointing at him. Then you'd sit down, and then you'd say, okay, I'm going to ask you a few questions. Show me where you're going to sit. And they'd lean or whatever they're going to do. You get up and you check the camera. You sit back down, ask your questions, and hope they don't move. If it looks like they're moving, you got to check that camera, because you are your own photographer. It was a nightmare. I hated the technology of this stuff. So anyhow, then you would take your recorder and you would take it back to the station, and then you'd find out what you got. It was really hard to play back in the field. So you just had to hope that they stayed within their frame, and you had to hope there wasn't a window behind them, and all these other things you had to learn. Okay, that's the business, right? Well, one time when I was working, and it was one of the first stories they did, they sent me out, they called me the news hound, because I was willing to chase anything that moved. And so anyhow, I was a girl, and they said, okay, you go get this. Well, one of the senators from California was in town, and he was out taking a survey and looking at a brand new marshland that we had. So this was an historic thing that the tide was going to come in, and it was going to flood this area. So I was expecting to see little mice running and all these things when they flooded this wetland for the first time. So right after the morning news was over, I packed up all this stuff. It's like really early. And I packed up all this stuff, had the wrong shoes on because I was new. And so my heels were sinking into the mud going out to the wetland. What was I thinking? I don't know. I felt like I should look professional. So I had a skirt on and stuff. I didn't have jeans on or something. And I just thought I should wear these shoes. So anyhow, I ruined those shoes, but I got out there and I shot, and it was pretty cool. The mice ran up and the birds and everything flew when the water started to come in because of the tide on Humboldt Bay. And then I went back. Oh, when I interviewed Howard Cannon, I interviewed all the people out there, got everything I needed, got back to the station, didn't have any video. I had nothing. And I went, oh my God, I'm going to get fired. I had nothing and I didn't know what to do. And I didn't even know if I should tell anybody I had nothing because they were going to leave with that story. And I was going, oh my God, I've totally screwed up. So anyway, I went to somebody that I did trust there, another reporter. I said, what do I do? And he said, oh, you're the news hound. You got to go back out there. He said, the only thing you can do now is go back there as the tide's coming in again and try to get what you can for video. And he said, call whoever and have them meet you. I did. I had Howard Cannon met me back out there, and so did somebody else with the wetland thing. I raced back out there like at 4 o'clock when the tide was coming in again, yada, 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 yada. Got enough stuff to make it kind of look like it was morning, although it was evening. And I went, okay. And I put it together saying, and I didn't say that it was morning. I just said, that's what happened this morning. And then we went to the tape and I explained that whatever, and all about the wetlands, never saying that it was morning right now, but not wanting to admit that I didn't get the video. I thought, oh my God, they're going to fire me now for sure. And that was the second time I thought I was going to get let go. Anyhow, I didn't get let go. I got promoted. I became the 11 o'clock anchor. Then I became their main anchor for about 6 months. And I was their news director, believe it or not. I was their acting news director. They said they never saw anybody, as people moved on, they never saw anybody step up just to try and fix things. I have had a career of fixing things. So if things go wrong, I am pretty good. So if something goes wrong with this presentation, I hope I can figure it out without too much distraction. But that was the story of Eureka, California. So then I moved to Reno. Now I came to Reno, as Neal told you, in 1982. And in 1982, it was kind of like a little bit beyond the Anchorman years of that, right? But when I got here, the only thing you needed to know about TV here was Tad Dunbar. Tad Dunbar was the guy. Now, if you don't know who Tad Dunbar is, let me just tell you, he's the man, he's the king, he's the last word. And he's what they call in television an 800-pound gorilla. Every station, or every market, I should say, has one. I see my computer's going. Every market in the country, they used to, ARD and all of the consultants used to say, every market has its own 800-pound gorilla. And this is not because he's a large guy. That was not that at all. It's not about his weight. It's not about his size. It's about his sway. And it's about how he is able, everybody watches Tad Dunbar. And I came here and I went, this is your 800-pound gorilla. And I didn't know him. I didn't know him then, and I think he thought of me as some snot-nosed kid right out of college, and I was coming in with all these ideas. I wanted to do different things with the station because I was coming from a Eureka, and I was like, oh, we got live shots here. We got all these things I can play with now, right? Well, Tad was the 800-pound gorilla. Nothing happened if Tad wasn't behind it then. He was the voice of reason for news. That's what we were deciding to do. And he was not the news director over there. John Howe was. But John Howe, one little story on John Howe, when I came in here, they flew me in on a plane and they said, we're talking to you about offering you a job, but if you don't think you're going to want to take the job, you got to pay for your own flight into Reno. We'll put you up, but if you decide not to take the job, you got to pay for your own flight. If you do take the job, we'll pay for your flight. And I went, all right, whatever, to get out of Eureka. So I came, and John Howe met me at the airport, and I am not a very tall person. I was 5'6". He's just much shorter than me, and I had on high heels because I wanted to look good. So I thought, oh yeah. So what did he do? He picked me up at the airport, and he took me to a lunch of the Rotary Club. And while we were at the lunch, and he introduced me to everybody in the Rotary as his new Amazon anchor, because I was much taller than him. I wasn't tall as Tad or anything, but he introduced me to everybody as the Amazon anchor. And I was so self-conscious because I'm a heavy person. I'm always worried about my weight. I was self-conscious. As soon as he dropped me off at the hotel, I got a taxi and I went to Meadowood Mall. Was it mall? I went to a mall. I guess it was Meadowood Mall. Anyhow, and bought flat shoes. I felt like I looked ridiculous because I looked too tall. I hadn't been to the TV station yet. And I was like, going, I don't know what people there look like, but he's pretty short. So I went and bought flat shoes because I thought, oh my God, I have to go buy some shoes. And yeah, so I would be shorter for the next 2 days. Anyway, Tad is an absolutely wonderful person. We didn't get along at first. I think he did. I thought he was like old and staunch, and he thought I was, snot-nosed and young, and all of my ideas were crazy, things like that. They hired me to do the 5:30 news. We went back and forth about that, and he was very clear. I couldn't use his reporters in his newsroom or his stories. I had to fill this show some other way, to which I went, well, all right. So I've told this story. I know Neal's heard it. So we had live shots then, and he didn't like to use the live shots. They were like a newfangled thing. So I started sending the live shot out, and I would try to get controversial things. And in my mind, I looked like Nightline, which was very big back then. Of course, I know it was just small town TV, but in my mind, I'm going to be Nightline. I would send somebody out to the Republican's house and mic them up, and I'd talk to them on the screen. We'd put a split screen, and I'd have somebody in on the set who was a Democrat, and we would argue about politics or whatever. I filled up like half of every show with things like that, something controversial. Something about the logging, something about the fishing, something about Tahoe. I'd find two sides of it and try to have these. And as soon as he saw that was a good idea, he said, I'm going to use that's a good idea. I'm going to use it. You can't do this anymore. I felt like, just throw me some more hurdles. Once again, I overcame all of these things and eventually did become his co-anchor. And you know what? We were like brother and sister the whole time. We had a couple of big knockdown dragouts over things, but we really came to terms with each other. I totally, completely respect him, and he knows all that, and he thinks I'm a good writer. And I cannot tell you how many times I was told by the general management at 8, much more than 8 than any place else, you have to remember, we didn't hire you for your looks. They're hiring people in TV for their looks. We hired you because you're a good writer. And they didn't like it when I wore my glasses because they said I looked like Linda Ellerby. And they said, why are you wearing your glasses, the general manager? And I said, because I can't see. I mean, I need them, and whatever, with my contacts weren't working or something. And I had to wear my glasses a lot of times, and they hated it when I wore my glasses, even though they also told me we didn't hire you for your looks. Okay. So here's what I'm watching my clock. This is what the studio looked like. And the thing to notice about this picture at 8 is that nothing is finished. Can you see that? It's all rough edges on everything. Television is such a superficial thing, and you think you're looking at a fancy, completely done set. And they do care more now what the sets look like, and they finish off the edges. But back then, it was just a bunch of plywood, and they would throw it up and say, okay, we're going to have a chroma key wall over here, and then we're going to do that. And this, all you're going to see from this camera is that background. You're never going to really see this stuff. So they didn't bother to paint it or fix it or finish it. And I thought it was hysterically funny. That's just the way TV sets were. In Eureka too. And they do finish them now, but they didn't back then. And also look at the promotion. We're all in this. There's 2 girls in there. There's Renee Seiler, Rob Nicoleski's over here, Dunbar, me, Tony Shelton. Now, Tony Shelton is no longer around. He died. Renee moved to, I think, New York, married some high-powered guy in New York. Rob Nicoleski lives in San Diego, and he works for, he's like a columnist reporter on energy. He's an energy specialist these days, and Ed Pierce. We had invited Ed over to, as they said, they called him the Delver back then. And they said, we're inviting the Delver over. He's going to delve into things that need to be delved into. We were all going, why are we hiring Ed? He's like the competition. He was at Channel 2 then. We brought him over to 8. And we became, Tad, Ed, and I became the 3 that most people saw most of the time. Because Ed got sick with hepatitis. Tad was out with something. He was sick and he was in the hospital. So I wasn't anchoring with Tad very long to when they said, you have to do all the shows. So I did the 5:30, the 6:30, the 11. I didn't do the mornings, but I did all of the evening shows. For months. And I think that's why people know my face, is because of that. I had to do all of them because Ed was out, then Tad was out, then, there was just nobody around. And they back then didn't let just anybody fill in. They didn't let Renee jump in, and she did the morning. They didn't let her jump in and do the evening. They didn't do that. They said, no, we have to have Tad or Ed. If Ed's off, Erin and Tad are here. If Tad's off for New Year's or something, Erin and Ed are here. It was always the 3 of us. So for many years. Okay, moving on. Do we get together? Yes, we do. Look at us. We get together. We just had a reunion of people. I can't remember. I think it was 90 to 95 or something like that. This guy, Dana Wagner, who did morning news and weather here for a long time. And this guy, Brian Pogue, got together in Las Vegas and decided we should have a reunion. So look, there's Ed, there's me, there's John Carroll. You might recognize him. Here's Shannon Brinius. Lori Aoki. Oh, look over in the corner there. Joe Hart. He worked at Channel 2 for just a few years, like 2 years at one point. And I mean, it was, yes, we don't get together very often, but there's Rob Nikolewski with gray hair. The thing is, we do try to stay in touch. This was a really fun thing to go and do. And this was, we all got together at the Great Basin Brewery. Tad is doing well. Ed is doing well. Ed is 77 and got married this year. Tad is having some trouble walking, but he does get out. And it was great. Anyway, it was great to see everybody. So yes, we do get together every once in a while. And I try to call Tad. I see Ed every once in a while because he's still working, but I try to call Tad like once every month or every 6 weeks and try to see if he wants to go have lunch or something, because I do adore him. He's just a fabulous, fabulous friend. Okay, so all the good things come to an end. After 18 and a half years at Channel 2, let me go back to that. Check this out. 18 and a half years. Tad and I are like the thing around town for the last, 15 or whatever, for a long time. And they decided to sell Channel 8. To remember where I was working. Channel 8. They were going to sell it to Gray TV. And when they did, they said, we have to downsize the payroll. We're only going to have one 800-pound gorilla. I don't care how long she's been, or get rid of her. Get rid of her. They kept Ed as a reporter. They kept Tad. They didn't keep me. They said no. And they fired 13 people that day and said, we're downsizing. Nobody did anything wrong, but we're downsizing. You're out. I didn't even know I could be fired. It never occurred to me that I could possibly be fired for anything. Anyway, it was a downsizing. So I ended up I didn't know what to do. I called Roland Mountain and I said, I don't know, what do I do? I mean, I just got fired. And he said, you take a job with me writing at the paper. He said, you can write a column for us. We'll take it. And also he said, start looking. Said, feel bad for yourself tonight, but pull yourself up by the bootstraps and start looking for work. Well, I got a job at KNPB, which is now Reno Public TV. What is it? PBS Reno. But back then it was KNPB. And I went to work there and I was a producer for them for documentaries for the Ford Foundation. We did documentaries on big issues in the West, like one was Draining the West, and it was all about water. And we did one on mining, and we did some big things. Mostly, though, I covered the legislature. And so we had a show that was called In Depth with Erin Breen, and we created a show every Friday. And I had an office down here in the legislative building, and I had 2 photographers and I think 2 reporters and me. And we would go around and go to all the hearings and then have a wrap up of what happened in the legislature on Friday night. So that's what I did for them. And I worked there for 5 years. And at 5 years, what happened? I got let go again. I said, what is this with me? Why do I attract this? My boss at the time, Jack Kelly, said, we have to let one person go from every department. And I absolutely hate to let you go, but you're the only person here I think can land on their feet and get another job. I don't know what these other people are going to do. I don't know what they'll do. You can get another job. And I went, man, I get fired for doing a good job. So anyway, I did. I left and I didn't know what to do there. So I tread water again, trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And eventually Channel 2 picked me up. And that was in 2006. I was out of work for about 6 months. So at Channel 2, I was hired to do the morning news with Tom Henkenius. So Tom Henkenius, he was just a firecracker. He was a reporter there. I said, can we put him on the anchor desk? He's really funny. We had a lot of chemistry. We were really funny together. And he said, let's apply for an Emmy. And I said, we're not going to win an Emmy. We're Reno. We're up against San Francisco. And he said, no, let's do it. So we decided that was our goal. We were going to win an Emmy. So we did all these crazy things on the morning show. And we taped them all and we turned in a tape and we won. Nobody was more surprised than me, but we won the Emmy. Not only that, we got a thing from the Emmys. They called us, Tom and I, and said, we think you two are the funniest morning crew we got. Will you come and help host the Emmys? So we got to go down to the Emmy. We didn't know if we were going to win. We were just nominated, but we got to go down. We were so cocky. We were so excited about the whole thing. And we told jokes. We introduced all of the people. I think we did San Francisco and they did Redding. Everybody had a different thing, but we had our little shtick, and our little shtick was really funny to us because I'm an old lady with a cat and a bunch of kids. He's a young guy who's gay and listens to completely different music. So we had this whole thing going with, he listens to whatever, I don't even know. And I do this. And we had this whole shtick going the whole time we were up there. We thought we were hysterical. Anyway, so we won an Emmy. We were so excited. And then a few years later, I won an Emmy so I have one for anchoring and hosting. And another one was 2 years later after Tom had left. And this one was for reporting. And it was for political reporting, which I did, which was a political campaign we started when I was at Channel 2, because I said I was going to take over politics. As soon as they let me off the morning news, after Tom left, I wanted to leave too. So I went off the morning news. It's too early. So anyhow, I wanted to become a political reporter. I started a thing called Reality Check, and we would go through the ads one line at a time, all the political ads, and say, that's true, or that's completely false, or that's not what happened, and clear up the ads. For that, that's what I won the other Emmy for, was for political reporting for that. Now, a lot of people do those things, but they didn't back then. These are some of the other things for news that I mean, there was so much news when I was working at Channel 2. And that's what I said, is it's such big news for such a little town. The Galaxy crash was in 1985. I have never been to anything with so much death in it. I had been to murders, I'd been to crime scenes, I'd been to a lot of things, seen dead people, but I'd never seen anything like this. They had to set up a temporary morgue down on South Virginia Street. It was amazing. I just never saw anything like it. There was only one survivor there. Then there was the big flood of 1997, of course. And the flood of 1997, when that happened on New Year's Day, I had New Year's Day off. I was here, home at the house. And they said, no, I didn't have it off. I'm sorry. I was supposed to go in like at 2 o'clock. That's right. It was New Year's and I was going in like at 2 o'clock. So I was watching it rain, putting sandbags around my own house, and thought, man, I better get to the station. I think I better get in. And I had little kids then. So anyhow, they called my now ex-husband in. He was a director. They said, you're going to have to come in. We had to get a babysitter for the 3 kids because I thought he was going to watch the kids while I worked. They called him in because of the rain. We both went in to work. And when I got there, they said, we're calling Tad in, but we're going to send Tad out in the rain. And I said, what, are you nuts? I said, he's going to show up in a suit because that's what Tad does. And he's going to show up. He's not even going to bring boots with him. I have everything I need in the car. I want to go out and interview people. I would much rather be out in the rain and the wind and going out and talking to people and doing stories than sitting here in a safe studio. This just seems wrong to be sitting here when I'm a reporter. Anyhow, I talked him into it. It was I had to do the first few cut-ins, and then when Tad got there, he was actually relieved because he didn't want to go out in the rain. Not that he's lazy. He just doesn't want to do that. He wants to be Walter Cronkite and be in the studio. I didn't want to do that. I mean, I'll do it, but I wanted to be out in the rain. So we switched like what we were assigned to for the day. And he had been called in. So that was the flood. This is the air race crash out at the air races. And you know what? This was a mess. This was in 2011. And this was a great example of how our newsroom came together. Like nobody was expecting that. And Jason Pasco, who is the news director still there, he was such a great guy for like, he could orchestrate a disaster like nobody I've ever seen. You've worked for news directors and sometimes they're bad. They assign people to the wrong things. They do the wrong thing. He knows exactly. Breen needs to be here. This one needs to be there. Tad's going to be. He knew exactly where to put people. And they orchestrated it well for the coverage. Very, very, very sad. I was here when J.C. Lee Dugard was kidnapped up in Tahoe and when she was returned, and I interviewed her mother on the phone. I was the only one that got a hold of her mother. Within the few days that all this was going on, I got a hold of her by phone, and we did an interview. So we had an exclusive interview with her. I wasn't here when she was found, but I was here when they were looking for her. And the Mapes, doesn't that make you sad? Made me so sad when they imploded the Mapes. I gotta say, that was just a very, very sad day to me because I thought that was such a beautiful building, and you guys with historics, I mean, I know that they had to get rid of it. It didn't have the sprinklers, yada, 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 but it just seemed so sad to me that they couldn't save it. Anyhow, so those and many, many more stories, but I don't want to bore you with them. I'm at my halfway mark, and I just want to make sure that, these just a lot of big stories while I was here. Those are the ones that were easily accessible for photos. And of course, the hot air balloon races. Got to end with something happy, right? Many, many times that I've covered those, gone up in the balloons, done things there, taken people with me. The balloon races are always a good time. Okay, so as I got them, convinced them to pull me off the morning news after 5 years. I signed a 5-year contract with them. They said, well, we'd like you to stay. And I said, I don't want to do the morning news. I don't want to get up at 2:30 in the morning again. And I'm sorry, but I can't really work with John Potter. And I know a lot of people love John Potter. That's fine. We didn't get along all that well, and I really wanted to be a reporter. So I said, just take me off. I mean, I just don't want to anchor anymore. And a lot of people looked at that, I think, as I downsized myself, but I really was happier going out in the field. I just know I'm a happier person. I don't need to just sit in front of a screen. So anyway, I covered politics. I said, I'll turn politics into a really good beat here because nobody was covering it back then. So I said, okay, I'm going to turn it into a beat. So these are the people I interviewed. There's Hillary, 2 Hillarys together. And look, there's Bill. Now, when she came to campaign here, the one thing I will say I noticed is Bill came in to warm up the crowd. And when he came in, the place lit up. He just lights up a room. Whether you like him or not, he seems to have some kind of charisma that he lights up the room. And he got the crowd going. Then he stepped up. And when she walked in, it sucked all of the air out of the room. All of the air. It was amazing. The whole, I don't know why. She just didn't have what she needed. I mean, I like her. I don't know. But anyhow, I will say he lit up the room and everybody was really on their toes listening to him. Nobody really cared when she came in and it was sad. But anyhow, I got to interview them both when it was over. Buttigieg was here. Biden was here, I think 2 times or 3 times. And of course, Trump. He was here 3 times. I interviewed him twice. One time though was just on what they call the rope line. Where they bring him through security to throw some questions. We were in Vegas, I think, at the time, and they really wanted to, you got to throw questions out there and try to get in front of people and muscle people out of the way if you want your questions to be answered. And he did stop and talk to our camera for maybe a minute. So we thought we were gods for getting him. That's what my news director was yelling at me in my ear. Get in there. I was like, oh no. So it's such a crush of people. Okay, so anyhow, we got him and I had to sit down with him the second time he came in. Okay. Elizabeth Warren was here. It's just Mitt Romney was here. I talked to him. And you know what? I really enjoyed listening to John Kasich. I thought he had some really, really good ideas. But he didn't make it very long, did he? He washed out. So that was politics that I covered. And I really enjoyed covering it. I mean, I really did. I thought it was fun. Now everybody covers it and I'm sick of it. I guess you just change. You got to reinvent yourself. So I got tired of politics. There's Obama's and the Bidens are here. They came in. Oh, and Michelle talked up at UNR. She, whether you like her or not, was amazing to listen to. She was up at UNR. She was an amazing speaker. So I figured, okay, I've done all these politics. I'm tired and it's time for a change. So I thought, you know what I kind of want to do? I want to move to Ireland. Why? I don't know. I just feel like I need to go to Ireland. So that was when my big way to get out of television. I couldn't figure out how to get out of TV. I keep falling into it in different ways and finding jobs, but I'm getting kind of tired of it. I don't like the way they're doing it. I think I need to make a change. So my change was, I think I'll go to Ireland. And this is what happened. I hope this plays. As I was leaving Channel 2, I'm playing this for you because they have way more video than I was able to access for this presentation. So this is like 5 minutes long, but still, this is when I left Channel 2 and said, look, people, I'm taking off. I'm going to go to grad school. I'm going to apply to grad school. If I get in, I'm going to Ireland. So play.
Welcome back, everyone. Boy, today is a tough day. It's a sad day for all of us here at Channel 2. We're happy for her. We're sad for us. Right. And not just for us here at Channel 2, but for really so many Northern Nevada viewers.
And that's because we're really saying goodbye to a Northern Nevada broadcasting icon. It's a person that we both grew up watching, right. Someone that we both learned from. And that person is Erin Breen.
She had a curiosity for following a story that made her very valuable to us.
In 1982, Erin Breen began working at KOLO-TV.
She wasn't afraid of work.
Erin, like most young television journalists, didn't plan on sticking around long in a smaller city like Reno.
She fell in love with the place the same way I did when I got here, and she wasn't going anywhere. And neither was I.
And now, from the team you know and trust.
In the 80s and 90s, Erin and Tad anchored the 5 o'clock and 6:30 newscasts at Channel 8.
There's nobody with whom I had more rapport or more respect than with Erin.
Their ratings were huge, and part of that was because Breen always put the story first.
Erin never approached the job as though her job was to look pretty and smile nicely. She approached the job as a reporter.
She's very sensitive to those that she interviews, but she's also very tough and firm when she needs to be as well.
She was just as dedicated to the news and the viewers behind the camera as she was in front of them.
I don't know how many times we took phone calls from people who said she's only wearing one earring. Well, she'd taken it off because she was working the phone until the last minute. She never got it back on.
And sometimes they would fall off by themselves.
Late tonight, my new for barking and need it.
There's only one thing more important to Erin than being a journalist, and that is being a mom.
We've decided that tonight will be my last night on the air for a while.
That goes without saying. We're going to get a ton of phone calls on Monday.
This is the Prime Edition of KOLO Eyewitness News.
In January of 1990, Erin welcomed her first child, Sammy.
In case you missed this little announcement at the first of the newscast, the long wait is over. It's a boy.
This is well worth it, I tell you. It was a long time coming.
Maybe there was some baby spit on her shoulder or something like that. She's almost like wearing that as a badge of being a mother.
Erin had two more children, Johnny and Megan, and would eventually leave Channel 8 to raise her kids. But in August of 2006, with Erin Breen, Erin made her return to local news.
Vice President Dick Cheney visits the biggest little city.
This time, right here at Channel 2.
Those stories and more on this Tuesday, August 29th, 2006.
We were looking to relaunch our morning show with a new, harder news edge and serious newscast, and no one better than Erin Breen to come be part of that.
Here at Channel 2, she reported it all for us, from politics to the day-to-day, everyday story.
Out in the field when we're both working the same story, and that's always a high and a long hug.
Yeah, she's become one of my favorite coworkers over the last 10 years. She sits right next to me, so we kind of have an alliance when we have newsroom debates. It's been a lot of fun working with her.
Believe us, Erin was never afraid to have fun out in the field.
I'm Erin Breen. We'll have that story coming up. Covering the story, Erin Breen, Channel 2 News.
She's an icon.
Erin is everything that defines a journalist.
I trust her, and she has always reported the news with such integrity.
There's a big reservoir of institutional and area knowledge that walks out the door when that happens, and that's never a good thing.
But what's Reno's loss is Ireland's gain.
Yes, they'll like her in Ireland.
Ireland needs to look out for Erin Breen because she's coming in, and they're never going to forget her.
Hell, she's going off to Ireland to go to school at her age. What advice? She's going to have a ball. She's going to love that.
Wow. I will love that. I can't believe you guys put all those together. And that the governor, okay, you guys got the governor winning. I couldn't. So you know what? When you've been doing this as long as I've been doing this, the big inclination really is just to fade to black. And that's what I wanted to do. But clearly that's not what we did here. It was kind of like the Erin Breen Memorial today around here. I'd just like to say thank you to everyone, to Channel 2 for giving me a home to tell my stories over this past 10 years, to the best news director there is, Jason Pasco, and the best photographers in town, Mackenzie and Gabby and Vance. And you know, it's a team effort here. It'll continue to be. But probably more important than all of that is all of you. From the businesses to the politicians to all of you who've let me tell your stories over the years. And I know there's been times when I nag you, right, Governor? And chase you down for interviews, but sometimes that's what you got to do to get a good story. And I've had more than my share. So thank you to all of you for doing that. And of course, you are up to date, and I am really out of time this time. Stay tuned for Scott.
Oh, I didn't mean to do that, to cut it off. That used to be my tagline. I used to say at the end of the newscast. I thought it was funny. You're up to date. We're out of time. Good night. Anyway, I really enjoyed working there at Channel 2. I do like all of the people. But if you look at my personal life, which I'm going to move to for just a second here, and that is, you know what? My dad was an Irish citizen. This is what sent me to Ireland. And you know what? He was never prouder than the day he got his Irish citizenship and he got his passport. And I helped him do that, did a lot of the paperwork for him to do that. I'm one of 6 kids. I'm the youngest of 6. Anyway, he told me when he died, right before he died, when he was in hospice, he said, I really want you to take some of my ashes and I want you to go take them to Ireland. Well, I'd never been to Ireland, but I thought, okay, all right. I mean, I'll do that. He said, I think you're the only one in the family who'll do it. And I did. So my sister-in-law and I went to Ireland and I went to school. So this is where I went to school. This is the National University of Ireland in Galway. This is just more buildings at my school. We don't need to waste time on. There's my degree. I was so excited to get my degree. Well, I took the ashes all over Ireland because my dad gave me like a scavenger hunt list of places. I need to go to Galway Bay. I need to go to Sligo. I need to go to Inistioge. I had to find all those places. And you know what? I did fall in love with it. He knew I would. I think he knew I would. And I did. So I went, got my master's degree. I was so excited. My kids came over. This is my good friend Jan that lives near Dublin. And that was when we were getting ready for the graduation. So I'm just very excited that I got to be able to go there and do so much. So it turns out, even though I'm not in TV, I got to tell stories. It's just, I'm addicted to it. It's all I really know how to do. So I started telling stories while I was in school to go to the, I started telling stories about Galway and about just city towns, the smaller places, Galway Bay. I went to, these are my kids. They all went to, I took them all to tea at Ashford Castle. And my daughter, when we drove in, she said, "Oh my God, are we staying here?" I said, "No, we're having tea. That's all we can afford at this place." Anyway, so we went there. And there's a castle. This is the Blarney Castle that's built into the hill. Well, I started doing stories there because I found so many things. This is the Ballymaloe Cookery School. The thing is, I went to all these places like the Butter Museum. And I went where they filmed the, what is it thing everybody watched? Game of Thrones. And I went to the Ballymaloe Cookery School, and there's a castle there that it has an observatory in the top, and they study, dark matter, and they hook into NASA. There are all these things that you don't hear about when you're in Ireland that I thought were amazing. Just as amazing as the Blarney Castle and everybody goes to see the Cliffs of Moher and the Blarney Castle, and there's just specific things you want to see in Dublin. I'm saying there's a lot of other things there. So I started going out and taping these stories. And as part of my dissertation for my master's degree, I turned them into a podcast. That was my project, I'm going to make a podcast. So I did this podcast, went out and interviewed people and taped music and put them all together and edited it all together and turned it into a podcast, called it Erin's Isle. Then I started thinking when I got out of school, I stayed an extra year in Ireland collecting stories and thought, what can I do with this? I'll turn it into, I don't know what I'll do. I'm going to try and figure this out. So what I did was I turned it into a podcast and got it on the airlines. So it's on British Airways and it's on Aer Lingus. And what it is just tell stories of Ireland from the little places, like the Donkey Sanctuary. So I'm going to play you a little clip of this.
I'm Erin Breen, and you're listening to excerpts from Erin's Isle. It's a look at Ireland through the eyes of Abroad. That's me. I'm constantly on the lookout for stories of Irish adventure, living history, Celtic culture, and the true ingenuity of the people who live here. These stories are part of a longer podcast you can find at erinmeehanbreen.com. And they're a look beyond tourism to the real magic of Ireland. So welcome to my view from Erin's Isle. Welcome to Ireland's Donkey Sanctuary. Well, that was beautiful. That was just gorgeous. Thank you. Hey, let me show you around. Roma over there, she was found in a bog. She'd stumbled into the mud and was shoulder deep when she was found and rescued. Bocelli was born here, blind. He always sticks right to his mother's side. And because they're here, they'll always be together. And Lorcan, the one with the odd-looking ears, he was abused. Kids chased him into an electric fence that damaged his ears so they can no longer stand up.
Donkeys come from all across Ireland, from the 32 counties here. We could get a call from somebody, a member of the public. We could get a call from the Department of Agriculture or the Gardaí notifying us of a donkey or a group of donkeys who are in a state of neglect or who need our help. Donkeys' coats are not rainproof, so they need constant access to shelter. Could be a stage where donkeys maybe have no feet, they've no water, or maybe their hooves have curled up, they've grown so long.
Okay, those are the kind of stories. I just wanted to play a little snippet. I do stories on just crazy things that you wouldn't know were there. But if you're going to West Cork, that's like 10 miles from Cork. You would never even know it was there. but it's like fascinating. So little museums and little places. Okay, it's called Erin's Isle, and you can find it. It's free at erinsisle.org. I just turned it into a nonprofit, and the nonprofit is now, I just got my first donation. I'm so excited. Anyhow, and I'll be going to Ireland for the month of May and part of June, trying to drum up support for it as a nonprofit. But you can find it and listen to them at erinsisle.org. Okay. Then, okay, so what am I doing now? Well, I'm working for Aging and Awesome. This is Kai Sisson, and this is his brainchild of a show. So it's a little TV show that I'm going to try to play a little piece of for you, but I don't want it to play very long, so I don't know if I'll be able to turn it off. But anyhow, this is one of the recent ones. This is what we did on Wainema Bay, and I may have to, just going to tell you right now, this might be rough because I'm going to cut it off. I don't think I did it right. So anyhow, this is Aging and Awesome. It's about older people here in town.
From the Virgil, a production of the A&A Media Group and Consider It Done Productions. Award-winning Aging and Awesome. Here are your hosts, Kai Sisson and Erin Breen.
Hello to our live studio audience and to all of you at home. Welcome to The Virgil and welcome to Aging and Awesome. Have we got a great show for you tonight?
Oh, we do. We're going to be taking you to the beautiful Wild Horse Sanctuary at Wainema Ranch, which is north of Reno, to share a story of the folks out there who run it, fulfilling their passion of seeing wild horses run free.
Also, coming up on the show,
We'll talk with sleep apnea expert Dr. Tammy Nuggebauer about common problems patients have and treatments available. And don't get scammed. Tim Johnston of the Better Business Bureau has some tips on avoiding all those scams out there these days, on your phone, on the internet, and in your mail. And of course, Kai's got a new trivia contestant for us in his cab.
but first, Wainema Ranch. It's a wild horse sanctuary north of Reno.
Now, it was actually started by Shari and Eddie Floyd. Now, you might know Eddie from America Matters Radio. He's 74 years old, and he absolutely never slows down. But when he and Shari saw a way to help the Mustangs, they jumped in with both feet.
Now, the project is fueled by the likes of country singer Lacey J. Dalton and a national movement to protect the wild horses in the West.
In Story County, the Mustang still runs free. Eagle soars above the pinyon pines. Oh, let 'em run. Let 'em run.
The Wild Mustangs of Nevada have been the top.
Okay. And one of the big things that I have in this show is a segment that we call Reconvene with Erin Breen. And I think that's because I was out of the country for a little over 3 years. And then when I came back, people hadn't seen me. They didn't know where I was. So we decided to call this Reconvene with Erin Breen. Just because I used to write this column for the newspaper. And really what this is this is turning a newspaper column into a television version. And when Kai said, could you do those, your column kind of things? Could you do those that you write about in your column, which are usually big ideas, universal kind of ideas with a lot of detail so that everybody can relate? Like we've all had a dog that died. We've all had lost something or had a child that's crazy when they're in school. We've all had a lot of those things. I would tell those stories and they would be mostly, but they're in the newspaper. That's what I did for the newspaper. He said, how can we do this stuff for TV? And I said, I don't know. It took me a while to figure it out. And I did, and this is Neal Cobb's favorite one, I think. This is 2 minutes long.
Hello there. I've got a story for you this week. This is one to make you think. And it's not religious, but it does involve heaven. So was this man and his dog, and they were walking along a road, and the man was just enjoying the scenery when it suddenly occurred to him that he was dead. He remembered dying, and that the dog walking along beside him had died years before him. And he had no idea where he was going. So after a while, the street turned to gold, and they came to a high white marble wall with a mother-of-pearl arched gate and a man sitting at a desk with a big, long-plumed pen. The traveler said, "Excuse me, but where are we?" "Well, this is heaven, sir," the man answered. "Wow. Would you happen to have some water?" the man asked. "Well, of course, sir. Come right in, and I'll have some ice water brought right up to you." So the man gestured, and the gate began to open,
Can my friend come in too? The traveler asked, gesturing to his dog. I'm sorry, sir, but we don't accept pets. Well, the man thought for a moment, and then he turned back toward the road and he continued on his way. At the top of the next hill, he came to a dirt road which was leading through a farm gate that looked as if it had never, ever been closed. As he approached the gate, he saw a man inside just leaning against a tree, reading a book. Well, excuse me, he said, do you have any water? Well, we sure do, the man said. Come on in. Well, how about my friend here? The traveler said, pointing to his dog. There should be a bowl by the pump over there, the man said. So the traveler and the dog went through the gate, found the bowl, and drank their fill. And then the traveler asked the man by the tree, so what do you call this place? Well, this is heaven, the reader answered. Well, now that's confusing, the traveler said. The man down the road said that that was heaven too. Oh, you mean the place with the gold street and the pearly gates? Well, that's actually hell. Well, doesn't it make you mad for them to use your name like that? The traveler asked. And the man by the tree answered, no, we're just happy that they screen out the folks who would leave their very best friends behind. So whether you own a pet or not, that's really something to think about, right? For Aging and Awesome, I'm Erin Breen.
Reconvene with Erin Breen is presented by the Medicare Store.
That's what I'm doing now. I'm doing Aging and Awesome. I kind of told myself when I came back from Ireland, a very good friend of mine, Warren LaRue, said, stick to what it is you want to write. Don't just go write for people. So what I've done since I got back, I want to write for older people and about services for older people. And believe it or not, death. I think we don't talk about it enough. I want to write about the environment and I want to write about Ireland. So I'm writing about Ireland with my podcast. And I'm trying to turn that into something that'll make some money at some point. For the podcast, I have written a few things for National Public Radio and for the DRI about the environment. And I'm doing Aging and Awesome. I also have written the annual report for the vets. I've done some things for the vets while I'm here. But I'm trying to look for things. I'm always hustling, writing jobs. I'm going to start writing grants for my podcast. I don't know where it's going to go. I can tell you that being a writer is not really all that lucrative. But I can't not do it. I'm just addicted to telling stories. So I think everybody needs to learn to do what they love. Stick with it. Whatever it is that you love to do, you need to stick with it. And I also think that, something, this is something that I have learned. Don't be afraid to reinvent yourself. I think for a long time, I thought all I was the lady on the news. I was the lady that told you the news. I was the lady that went out to the news. I'm somebody you might recognize because I'm around is why. And because I've done a lot of radio and a lot of TV. And I felt like I was that. Well, what was I doing? Going off to Ireland. Well, you know what? There was a calling from my dad, but to go to Ireland and live there, see what it's like, not just go visit. I wanted to live there and see how they do their holidays and those kind of things. So that's exactly what I did. I finally pulled up my tent stakes and said, I'm going. Even my kids, when they took me to the airport, said, I don't think we really believed you were leaving. I said, what were you thinking when I was cleaning out my house and renting it? When I took all my furniture and put it all in storage, you're thinking I'm not going? They said, I don't know. We just didn't really think you were going to leave. Well, they were all out of high school and into college and doing their thing. And I thought, it's a good time to go. I need to try and figure out what's next for me. And I couldn't figure it out here. And I have admired the fact that people will keep me working in TV, even if I don't look the part sometimes. They will let me work in TV because they do trust my writing. But I don't know. I needed to find a way to do the writing I wanted to do, which is the things and the topics. And in a newsroom, they don't do that anymore. It used to be a lot easier to do that. But now it's not. You've got to do what they want you to cover. And what I'm seeing is that they don't really advance the stories in between the news. They just tell you the same story 9 times in the same day, and it drives me nuts. And I'm not trying to be sour grapes on it. I'm just saying I don't want to do that anymore. So I found Kai found me, we found each other, and this is a way for me to tell 4-minute stories that I want to tell. So it all worked out in the end. So that's all I got to say. How did I do? 57, that's pretty close.
That was awesome, Erin. That was, I found your story really great. It was,
oh, thank you.
You're very courageous. I think sometimes you didn't know what you wanted to do, but you're willing to do it. And I think not everybody gets to do the job they want. And I feel lucky being able to do that job. But at the same time, you left the country, you left everything.
Oh, it was all good though. And I brought my kids.
It's pretty cool.
it was very good. The kids came over for my graduation. The kids came over we spent 2 weeks at Christmas. I rented a cottage for us. We went and stayed. And so, I mean, I saw my kids a couple times and I came home, but I don't know that it even has to be the perfect job. I just am glad I'm not against anybody doing any of this stuff, but I'm glad I'm not having to make coffee or sell shoes or something that just, to me, would be hard. As long as I'm able to find a way to tell stories, I just know that's what I'm good at. I'm not that good at other stuff. I know that. And so I'm trying to stay in the lane where I know that I can be successful. And I'm not making a lot of money on this yet, but you know what? I'm doing the things I like to do. I don't mind when I get up in the morning when I've got interviews to go to for Kai, or whether I'm getting on a Zoom call in Ireland or whatever it is. They're all projects that I know that I'm invested in and want to do. So I'm happy with it. I'd rather be doing that than going to an office and making a lot of money. I just would.
Well, I think that's the thing, it's what makes you happy. And I like how you were able to merge your TV story and your newspaper. So you're biting your feet, and still being able to do that. So I have a question. How do you guys get stories? You and Kai, you said, work this together, and he does more of the business, and you're kind of the reporter. But how do you guys come up with stories, and what kind of following do you guys have? Do you know with Aging is Awesome?
Yeah, it is. You know what, we're having the audience is growing. We tried to expand down into Las Vegas, and then we decided we need to just keep it here in Reno. So we pulled it back. Instead of doing Las Vegas and trying to be bigger, we're trying to be better at Reno. So, and we have, anybody can send in ideas to agingandawesome.com, and they come and I see them and Kai sees them. I go through most of the ideas and go, oh, that looks good, or I don't know how we're going to tell that because we're going to be video, or will that guy come in for an interview? I make a lot of calls trying to find people that I think are going to be interesting. And the big thing with that is I'm looking for things that are somehow going to be able to be told visually. Because when you're working in television, you can tell anything in the paper, but you can't, it's hard to tell a television story and keep people watching unless you've got some video for it. So we did recently, I just wrote it last night, this gal that lost 175 pounds, but she took her dogs for a walk and she showed me so many things at her house. She was a very, very inspiring story. And the Wainema Ranch, they've got the wild horses out there. I was able to find enough video and get out there and do enough that we got really good video of it. And with television, video is what's going to drive it. It's hard to do it on somebody that, even if they just wrote a book, sometimes that's a little hard to keep it moving. But we did do a thing recently on one that Neal told me about, and it was a guy that writes a firefighter letter, Cappy Joe. He writes a firefighter's letter, but he had a lot of pictures of old-timey, what they did back in the day in the firehouse and that kind of stuff, and he had a lot of stories to tell about it. So it was pretty easy to kind of pick it up visually. So I'm trying to, when it's a television thing, I'm listening for that. When I'm trying to do radio stories, like the audio stuff I do in Ireland, it's got to have sound. Donkeys are great. Even the Butter Museum was great, but you can't go to just a museum where there's pictures. I mean, what are you going to have?
Oh, no.
You have no sound, really. You got to find the in on the story. So it depends on what you're doing the story for. But we are way open, and I hope people do send in story ideas because we're always looking for them at Aging and Awesome. We are.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I was curious about that, and you're right. You'll find that people are more engaged if, like, you do Facebook posts with images with some information versus just factual information. And so, yeah, I mean, people are visual, and so I can see why that engages people.
Yeah. So, and I don't even know if you're going to get any questions from people because I think they're all in the pubs.
Let's see. Okay, I do have a question. It says, is Aging and Awesome online, or is it a web?
It is on Channel 2 at 7 o'clock on Saturday nights. And it is also online. If you go to agingandawesome.com, the very first thing it's going to come up and it's going to say episodes. You can just just go to that and it'll show you. These are the ones about the horses, and here's the story about the dogs, and here's the story about the lady. It'll tell you what those episodes are. I'm going to say there's maybe 15 of them up there at a time, and then we drop them off and put a new one on. I think something like that. Anyway, so they're online at Aging and Awesome. Wait, yeah, agingandawesome.com.
No.
I had to think.
That's awesome. And we've gotten somebody who was saying it's a great presentation. Thanks so much. And Neal, do you have a question that you'd like to ask?
I just wanted to add to how she gets different programs. I had her do a program for us at God Club. No, it has nothing to do with religion. That's an acronym for Good Old Days. And I had the honor of walking her all around and introducing her to people like Sonny, the photographer, all kinds of people on there. And she was writing everything down, and there was a ton of talent sitting there in that audience. And she's got every one of them, and you better believe she's going to go ahead and go after them.
Oh, I did. And you know what? One that we just worked on, and I just got an email while we were even talking, Neal, was
Sonny Minute knew.
yeah, well, it's Marilyn Newton, and we're putting together a story on all of her photography for the paper and all the awards she's won for the paper. That's because I saw her at the God Club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a great presentation, and you've shared such good stories, and I just really liked learning about how you came into the business and did your program. So it was a great. I'm so glad we had to wait and that you were our speaker this month.
Oh, thank you very
for
much.
St. Patrick's Day as well. And
I'm
a little bit
flattered.
of luck of the Irish, but it was a great program. I liked it.
Good enough. I'm telling the Irish stories. Go to erinsisle.org. But I just, you know what? I feel blessed that I've been able to continue to write. That's just what I want to do. I don't care if it's for books or the paper or TV or radio, wherever it is. I just really enjoy the craft of putting stories together. So I don't know. I just feel like I've been lucky enough to be able to do that this long. And I know a lot of people wondered when I came back from Ireland, why don't I just go back to the newsroom? And I did go to the newsroom and took them donuts and went in and said, okay, how we doing here? I'm back. And then I looked at the way they're doing things and I just said, I don't think I can do this. I feel like I'm selling my soul for this. So I'm just going to try to figure out what to do. And luckily, look, Kai came along, and I worked with him at Channel 2 for a little bit. He did the morning, I think, traffic or something there. And so we sat kind of close to each other and used to crack jokes, but I didn't really know him. And when he called and said, you want to have a cup of coffee? I need a writer. And I was going, yeah, sure. So then I just started writing some segments for him. And now I'm pretty much in charge of all of his content because I just know so many people in town. Yeah. I know a lot of people. So I can, if he says we need a St. Patrick's Day story, I'm going, oh, I got one for you. I can usually find the kind of things that he's looking for. And I'm a pretty good judge of what's going to make a good story. So it's worked out very, very well. And I feel very, very thankful for that. Now, what will happen in Ireland, I have no idea. But I do know that this is a good idea. And I have 2 friends there that are setting up interviews for me. So when I get there, we'll just start interviewing with people trying to get grants. And I really, really hope it works being a nonprofit. I think that's going to be the right key, but I don't know, might not, might have to find another dream. But I have learned over all this time, I was so afraid when I left TV that people would forget me and I wouldn't know what I'm doing and I wouldn't get another job. What am I going to do? And you know what? You've got to be able to reinvent yourself, which I didn't want to do, but I learned you have to, because look at me, I got laid off. I've been laid off 2 or 3 times now. The paper laid me off. I was like, what? So, but it's never been for cause that I ever did anything wrong. It's always been, we're downsizing. We decided we don't want columnists anymore, which is a nutty decision, but okay. I respect what they've done things for. I just realize, you can't just depend on one job. You've got to be able to pivot somewhere and go somewhere else. And I'm good with it. So thank you very, very much for having me. Pardon?
Yeah. You've done so well with, this format to this format and, and then to podcast. And so you're still telling your stories, but I think it's very inspiring for people,
It's not every night. I don't get to tell them every night, but you know what? That's okay. I enjoy what it is I'm doing. And I thank you very, very much. I wish you luck with this whole series, but if you got Neal with you, you'll be successful with everything.
Yeah. I have a little advantage with Neal.
Absolutely. So
well, thank you, Erin, and this was wonderful. And thank you, everybody.